What if I told you that the force that built concentration camps, that fuels online mobs, and that quietly suffocates your own potential, isn't evil? We spend our lives looking for villains, for bad actors plotting our demise. But the most dangerous force in the world is far more common, far more insidious. It's a force you see in your workplace, at your family dinner table, and if you're brave enough to look, you can feel its pull within your own mind. This isn't some abstract philosophical debate. It's the source of that feeling of exhaustion you can't shake. That sense that you're playing a game where the rules are rigged, a game designed to wear you down and keep you compliant. This force has a name, and it was given to it by a man staring death in the face. From inside a Nazi prison cell, just weeks before his execution, the pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote his final, desperate warning to humanity. He argued that the greatest threat wasn't the obvious evil of the regime's leaders, but something he called stupidity. He didn't mean low intelligence. He meant a willed blindness, a voluntary surrender of the mind that infects even the most brilliant people, turning them into passionate advocates for their own destruction. He saw that this was a poison that felt like a cure, a weakness that masqueraded as strength. This video will uncover that final warning. We are going to dissect the anatomy of this functional stupidity, understand how it is deliberately cultivated by our modern world, and expose how it is being weaponized against your mind by forces that profit from your conformity. The insights here are not comfortable. They will challenge you, but they will also arm you with the tools to see the world clearly, perhaps for the first time. So the only question is, are you ready to understand the invisible enemy that is quietly shaping your life? Or will you choose to remain comfortable? The choice starts now. Stupidity as a force. What if I told you the greatest evil isn't born from malice, but from a void? Not a void of love or empathy, but a void of thought. We've been trained to look for monsters, for people who consciously choose to do harm. But we're looking in the wrong direction. The most destructive force in human history isn't the villain plotting in the shadows. It's the well-meaning individual who has simply stopped thinking. A force that hijacks good intentions and turns them into instruments of ruin. Think of stupidity not as an empty space, but as an active parasitic entity. It doesn't care if you have a high IQ or a collection of degrees. In fact, it often prefers an intelligent host. It finds a crack in your certainty, a moment of fatigue or fear, and it seeps in. It whispers that thinking is too hard, that conforming is safer, that the consensus must be right. And once it takes root, it uses your own intelligence against you, making you a brilliant advocate for your own intellectual surrender. Picture this: a talented project manager in a bustling American tech firm. He's sharp, respected, and genuinely cares about his team. But a new nonsensical corporate policy comes down from above, one that everyone privately admits is inefficient and demoralizing. Instead of questioning it, he becomes its most zealous defender. He crafts eloquent emails explaining its strategic necessity and dismisses his team's valid concerns. He's not a bad person. He has simply allowed the pressure to conform to switch off his critical mind. This isn't just a workplace drama. It's a fundamental flaw in the human machine, one that was laid bare in a chilling experiment. In 1961, at Yale University, Stanley Milgram invited ordinary people into his lab. He told them they were part of a study on memory. Their job was to administer electric shocks to a learner in another room every time he made a mistake. With each error, the voltage increased, and the screams of pain from the other room grew more desperate. These were everyday folks, accountants, teachers, engineers. They weren't sadists. They could hear the agony they were supposedly inflicting. They trembled, they sweated, they pleaded to stop. Yet, under the calm insistence of a man in a lab coat, a staggering 65% of them delivered the final, massive 450-volt shock, a level they were told could be lethal. They didn't do it because they were evil. They did it because they had outsourced their conscience to an authority figure. Now, let's bring this home. Be brutally honest with yourself for a moment. Think about that time at a family gathering in Mumbai, where an elder proposed a harmful, outdated idea about someone's future, and you bit your tongue to keep the peace. Or that conference call where everyone praised a flawed strategy, and you just nodded along. You weren't being malicious, you were just tired. It was just easier to not rock the boat. In that moment, You let the force of functional stupidity win. You have to understand this force is not a bug in the system. It's a feature of our social programming. It thrives in environments that reward obedience over integrity. It grows stronger every time we choose comfort over truth. We are all just one moment of intellectual laziness away from flipping a switch on a stranger, convinced we're doing the right thing. The question is no longer if it can happen to you, but how often it already is. But this isn't just a theory born from a sterile laboratory setting. One man saw this force at work not with volts and actors, but with real lives and a whole nation's soul on the line. He watched it consume the most educated and cultured minds of his time from inside a prison cell, waiting for his own execution. He diagnosed the poison as it was killing him. What did this man see in the heart of the Nazi regime that Milgram only later proved in a lab? The origin of the theory in Bonhoeffer. The man who stared into this abyss was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and he wasn't a detached academic in a comfortable university office. He was a German Lutheran pastor, a brilliant theologian, and a man of deep conscience living through the rise of the Nazi Party. He didn't have the luxury of observing human nature from a distance. He was trapped inside the machine as it tore his world apart. His insights weren't written for scholarly journals. They were written from a prison cell, whispered in letters smuggled out before his execution. This was his final, desperate warning to humanity. Bonhoeffer came from the pinnacle of German intellectual society. His father was a leading psychiatrist, his family a circle of artists, scientists, and thinkers. He was raised to believe in the power of reason, debate, and education. He trusted that a society built on such foundations was immune to the kind of primitive madness he saw brewing in the streets. He believed that good, intelligent people would, in the end, always see the truth. That faith, the very bedrock of his worldview, was about to be systematically shattered. As the 1930s bled into the 40s, he watched in horror as the people he trusted most began to crumble. It wasn't the uneducated masses who fell first. It was the doctors, the lawyers, the university professors, the fellow churchmen. These were the guardians of German culture, the very people sworn to uphold truth and reason. Yet he saw them, one by one, abandon their critical faculties. They began to parrot party slogans, to rationalize injustice, to celebrate a brutal ideology that stood against everything they once claimed to believe. Imagine Bonhoeffer sitting down for coffee with a former colleague, a renowned professor of philosophy. This man, who once taught Kant and the supremacy of moral duty, now uses his brilliant mind to write elegant essays justifying the regime's racial laws. He's not being stupid in the conventional sense. He's using his intelligence as a shield against the truth. He has chosen the comfort of belonging over the agonizing duty of independent thought. This is what Bonhoeffer saw everywhere. Intelligence being weaponized in service of a lie. He realized the problem wasn't a lack of information. These people had all the facts. They knew what was happening. The issue was something deeper, a kind of moral and intellectual rot. It was a conscious choice to surrender their own judgment to the intoxicating power of the collective. It was easier to believe the simple, powerful lies of the state than to face the complex, terrifying truth of their complicity. This wasn't ignorance. It was a profound act of psychological self-preservation. Think about it in our own world. Look at the C-suite executive in the UK, a master of data and analytics, who ignores all the numbers to support a gut feeling from the CEO because it's better for his career. He isn't dumb. He's just prioritizing his position over his principles. This is the same mechanism. It's the decision to put on a blindfold because the light is too harsh. It's the active choice to become a cog in a machine you know is heading for a cliff. From his Gestapo prison cell, Bonhoeffer wrote his most haunting observation: "Against stupidity, we are defenseless." He wasn't being poetic. He had realized that while evil can be exposed and fought, this particular kind of stupidity is impenetrable. Why? Because the person caught in its grip genuinely believes they are doing good. They are immune to facts, to reason, to protest. Their stupidity is a fortress, and their conscience is the guard at the gate, convinced it is protecting the city. Bonhoeffer saw that this affliction wasn't about a low IQ or a lack of schooling. It was a different beast entirely, something more complex and insidious. It was a kind of deliberate shutdown of the mind, a willed blindness that infected people in groups. But what do you call such a thing? If it's not the stupidity of the ignorant, then what is it? What is the name for this condition where a person's mind is no longer their own? What is functional stupidity? The condition he identified, this willed blindness of the intelligent, is what we now call functional stupidity. And the first thing you must understand is that it has absolutely nothing to do with a person's IQ. It's not about being uneducated, slow-witted, or uninformed. In fact, some of the most functionally stupid people on the planet are certified geniuses. This isn't a cognitive problem, it's a social one. It's a failure of character, not a failure of intellect. Here is Bonhoeffer's earth-shattering insight. Functional stupidity is an infection that one catches from a group. A perfectly rational, independent thinker can become functionally stupid the moment they are absorbed into a powerful collective movement or ideology. Their individual mind isn't lost, it's surrendered. They trade the difficult work of personal judgment for the intoxicating comfort of group certainty. Their thinking is no longer their own. It belongs to the tribe. Imagine your mind as a sophisticated personal computer, running on an operating system you've built over a lifetime of experience and learning. Functional stupidity is like a virus that bypasses your firewall. It doesn't want to just steal your data. It wants to replace your entire OS. It installs a simple, powerful program that has only one function: to echo the group's slogans, serve the group's interests, and attack any data that contradicts the group's narrative. Your processing power is still there, but it's been hijacked for a foreign purpose. Think of a young, ambitious professional from a small town in Canada who moves to a big city for a high-stakes corporate job. At first, she's full of unique ideas, but she quickly learns that in her new workplace only one way of thinking is rewarded. To get ahead, she starts mimicking the soulless corporate jargon of her superiors. She champions ruthless strategies she once found abhorrent. She hasn't gotten dumber. She has simply adapted to survive. She is now functionally stupid within that corporate ecosystem. And here's what makes this so incredibly dangerous. The functionally stupid person feels fantastic. They are liberated from the exhausting burden of doubt and moral complexity. They are no longer a single, confused person, but a confident soldier in a righteous army. This feeling of power and belonging is a drug, and it makes them completely deaf to reason, facts, or appeals to their former self. How can you argue with someone whose ignorance feels like a badge of honor? Let's make this practical. Open your phone and look at the online groups you belong to. That political movement, that fan community, even that professional network. How often is a complex human issue flattened into a single shareable hashtag? How often have you found yourself passionately defending a position you only learned about 5 minutes ago, simply because it was your group's position? That feeling of instant certainty, that rush of belonging, that is the siren song of functional stupidity in our digital age. Ultimately, Bonhoeffer realized that those in power don't need to force people to be stupid. They just have to create the right conditions. Overwhelm them with a crisis, keep them in a state of economic anxiety, feed them a constant stream of outrage and fear. Functional stupidity then becomes a survival mechanism, a desperate retreat into simplistic, pre-packaged answers because the reality of the world is just too overwhelming to process alone. It's a cage people willingly lock themselves into. This is not just a social theory. It's a weakness hardwired into the very architecture of our brains, a flaw in our psychological programming that makes us ripe for this kind of takeover. But before we dive into how your own mind is pre-programmed for this kind of surrender, take a moment to consider if this is hitting home. If you're starting to see these patterns in the world and in yourself, then hit that subscribe button. Subscribing isn't just about watching another video. It's a commitment to keep uncovering the truths that set you free, the conforming mind and the algorithms. So how is your mind so easily hijacked? The uncomfortable truth is that your brain is not designed to seek objective truth. It's a survival machine, hardwired over millions of years with one primary directive: keep you safe within the tribe. Thinking independently is risky. It can lead to isolation, and to our ancient brain, isolation means death. This primal fear of being cast out is the backdoor that functional stupidity uses to get inside your head. It's not a software bug. It's in your very hardware. Let's start with the first vulnerability. Your brain hates being wrong. In the 1950s, Psychologist Leon Festinger called this cognitive dissonance. Think of it as a mental allergy to contradiction. When you hold a strong belief and you're presented with evidence that flatly contradicts it, your brain panics. This creates a painful, itchy feeling of inner conflict. To stop the pain, your brain will do anything. It will twist logic, ignore facts, discredit the source, whatever it takes to protect your original belief. Imagine a man who prides himself on his investment skills. He's poured his family's savings into a hot new tech stock. Then credible reports surface showing the company is a fraud. To accept this fact means accepting his own failure and the catastrophic loss. The dissonance is unbearable, so his brain kicks into overdrive. He starts seeking out obscure blogs that call the reports a smear campaign. He dismisses the evidence as a conspiracy. His brain isn't seeking truth. It's desperately seeking comfort. Now, let's add the second vulnerability. Your deep-seated terror of social rejection. Solomon Asch demonstrated this perfectly in his famous conformity experiments. He'd place a volunteer in a room with a group of actors. They were shown a line and asked to match its length to one of three options. The answer was glaringly obvious. But then, the actors one by one would confidently choose the wrong line. The camera would zoom in on the volunteer's face as the pressure mounted. You can see the conflict raging in their eyes. Their own senses are screaming one thing, but the entire group is saying another. And what happened? A shocking 75% of people went against the evidence of their own eyes, at least once, just to go along with the crowd. They weren't blind. They were afraid. The primal need to belong was so powerful that it literally distorted their perception of reality. They would rather be wrong with the tribe than right and alone. For most of human history, these vulnerabilities were manageable. But today they are being targeted and exploited by the most powerful mind control machines ever invented. Social media algorithms. These are not neutral platforms. They are billion-dollar systems designed to find your cognitive dissonance and your need for conformity, and then weaponize them against you. Their goal isn't to inform you. It's to keep you engaged by making you feel right and validated. Think about your own feed. When you watch one video that confirms a suspicion you have, what happens next? The algorithm doesn't show you a counter-argument. It serves you a dozen more videos that say the exact same thing, each one a little more extreme than the last. It slowly builds an echo chamber around you, a comfortable digital tribe that makes you feel smart, certain, and righteous. It's a custom-built reality, delivered right to your screen, designed to keep you clicking. So let's recap. We have a society that creates the conditions for stupidity to thrive. We have brains that are biologically programmed to seek comfort and conformity over truth. And we have technology that amplifies these weaknesses on a global scale, 24 hours a day. It's a perfect storm. When you look at it this way, it feels utterly hopeless. How can any individual possibly stand against forces this powerful? Are we simply doomed to be puppets of our own programming? Individual resistance. Intellectual humility. So, is it hopeless? Are we all just puppets dancing on the strings of our biology and our algorithms? The answer is no. Absolutely not. The system is rigged against you, but you are not powerless. The escape route doesn't begin with changing the world. It begins with changing your own mind. The first act of rebellion is a quiet, internal one. It's the cultivation of a rare and powerful virtue, intellectual humility. Intellectual humility isn't weakness or a lack of conviction. It's the absolute bedrock of intellectual strength. It is the courageous recognition that your perception of the world is limited, flawed, and possibly wrong. It means treating your strongest beliefs not as sacred relics to be defended at all costs, but as hypotheses to be rigorously tested against reality. It is the conscious decision to value truth over the comfort of being right. This humility is the antidote to the arrogant certainty of the functionally stupid. So how do you cultivate it? Here is your first practical exercise. Practice intellectual friction. Think of it like a workout for your mind. Once a week, you will deliberately expose yourself to the smartest, most well-reasoned argument against something you deeply believe. The goal isn't to immediately change your mind. The goal is to see if your belief can withstand the pressure. If it can, it emerges stronger. If it can't, you've just liberated yourself from a falsehood. Let's make this real. Say you're an ambitious man in the US who believes that a relentless hustle culture work ethic is the only path to success. For your weekly exercise, you will sit down and read a well-researched article by an economist, arguing how this culture leads to burnout and diminishing returns. It will feel uncomfortable. Your ego will want to reject it. But by engaging with the friction, you are building a more resilient, nuanced, and powerful mind. You are breaking the echo chamber. Here is your second practice. Embrace productive ignorance. Our world rewards loud, confident opinions, even if they're baseless. Your act of rebellion is to reclaim the power of saying, "I don't know," before you form a strong opinion on a complex issue, a new political crisis, a scientific debate. Pause. Ask yourself this one question. Can I currently argue the other side's best points better than they can? If the answer is no, you don't have an opinion yet. You have a prejudice. And here is your third, most immediate tool, the 60-second rule. This is your circuit breaker against algorithmic hypnosis. The next time you feel that emotional rush to share an outrageous article or a viral meme, stop, just for 60 seconds. Open a new browser tab and find one independent, reputable source to quickly verify the claim. That 1 minute of intentional pause shatters the emotional reaction to sharing loop that social media thrives on. It is a small act of defiance that reclaims your mental sovereignty. This path isn't easy. Bonhoeffer understood this. He knew that this kind of rigorous self-examination is costly. It's painful to confront the possibility that you've been wrong. It can feel lonely to step outside the warm, comforting certainty of your tribe. But this discomfort is the price of freedom. It is the cost of forging a mind that cannot be easily manipulated, a character that will not be swept away by the mob. It is the difference between being a puppet and being a man. But even as you turn your own mind into a fortress of intellectual integrity, you have to recognize a sobering truth. You are still living in a world designed to erode your defenses. Practicing intellectual humility in a society that rewards functional stupidity is like trying to stay dry in a hurricane with a small umbrella. Personal discipline is the essential first step. But what about the storm itself? What good is a fortified mind if the very system around you is toxic? Structural changes and the threat of AI forging your own mind is the first and most crucial step. But let's be honest, you can't win a war by only being a good soldier. You have to change the battlefield itself. Individual discipline is your shield, but it's not enough to dismantle the global architecture that produces and rewards functional stupidity. We have to move from personal resistance to demanding structural change. We have to fix the toxic world that is making us sick. First, we must treat our information environment like our physical environment. We have agencies that ensure our water isn't poisoned and our food isn't contaminated. Why do we allow tech platforms to poison our minds with no oversight? We must demand algorithmic transparency. We have a right to know how these systems are curating our reality, what biases are coded into their logic, and how they are being designed to exploit our psychological vulnerabilities for profit. This isn't about censorship. It's about public health. Second, we need a revolution in education. We teach our children algebra and history, but we fail to teach them the single most important survival skill of the 21st century: how to defend their minds. Comprehensive media literacy can't be an elective. It must be a core subject. From a young age, we need to be teaching kids how to spot logical fallacies, how to evaluate a source's credibility, and how to understand the basic architecture of digital manipulation. We are sending generations into an information war completely unarmed. But the most profound change we must make is economic. A person who is constantly stressed about their next paycheck, their housing, or their health care does not have the mental bandwidth for careful, nuanced thought. Economic precarity is the fertile soil in which functional stupidity grows. When people are exhausted and afraid, they become desperate for simple answers and strong leaders. Policies that provide economic stability, a safety net, are not just about money. They are a direct investment in a society's collective intelligence. Picture a factory worker in the American Rust Belt who just lost his job to automation. He's a good man, a smart man, but he's terrified. He can't sleep, worried about his family's future. He turns on the news, and a politician gives him a simple, powerful narrative. A single group of people to blame for his suffering. It's a lie, but it's an easy lie that gives his pain a target. His economic desperation made him a prime candidate for intellectual poison. And just as we begin to grasp the scale of this problem, a new threat is emerging, one that will make everything we've discussed look like child's play. Until now, the manipulation has been human-designed, but we are now entering the age of artificial intelligence. We are building systems that can learn your personal fears, your insecurities, your deepest biases with surgical precision. And they will be able to craft personalized propaganda so effective it will be almost impossible to resist. Imagine a world, just a few years from now, where a political ad isn't a generic message. It's a deepfake video of a figure you trust, speaking directly to you, using your slang, referencing a private hope you once shared online, all to convince you of a certain truth. The line between reality and algorithmically generated fiction will evaporate. When the lie is custom-made to bypass your specific mental defenses, how will you ever know what's real? This is no longer just a battle against flawed social systems or manipulative politicians. We are standing on the precipice of a war for the nature of reality itself. The pressure to surrender your mind will become overwhelming, almost absolute. Which brings us to the final haunting question that Bonhoeffer himself faced. A question he answered with his own life. When the cost of thinking for yourself is not just social isolation, but everything you have, who stands fast? The final challenge. To keep thinking. And so we arrive at the final question, the one Bonhoeffer asked from his death cell as he watched a world go mad. Who stands fast? When the pressure to conform is absolute, when thinking for yourself is the most dangerous act imaginable, who has the strength to remain standing? The answer, he realized, has nothing to do with how smart you are, how much you know, or how successful you are. It comes down to something far more fundamental, a question of character. The battle for your mind is fought over a single, crucial choice you make every single day. The choice between the discomfort of thought and the comfort of certainty. Thinking is hard work. It's exhausting to hold contradictory ideas in your mind. It's painful to admit you might be wrong about something important. Certainty, on the other hand, is a warm, addictive drug. It's easy. It feels good. Functional stupidity at its core is the tragic choice to trade the difficult freedom of thought for the easy slavery of certainty. Picture yourself, late at night, wrestling with a fact that threatens a belief you've held your entire life. A voice whispers, "Just let it go. It's easier this way." Everyone you know agrees with you. Why cause trouble? That is the voice of intellectual surrender. But another voice, quieter and harder to hear, says, "No. Stay with the discomfort, follow the truth no matter where it leads." The man you become is decided by which of those voices you choose to obey in the silence. This is the battle Bonhoeffer fought to his last breath. He wasn't executed for a single crime. He was executed for his unrelenting refusal to stop thinking. He understood that surrendering your mind is the first step to surrendering your humanity. You become, in his words, a puppet whose strings are pulled by whatever force is strongest at the moment. His death wasn't just a political act. It was the ultimate defense of the individual human mind against the crushing weight of the collective. So here is the final challenge. This is not a thought experiment. It is a call to action. This week, I want you to choose one belief that you hold with absolute certainty. It could be about your career, your politics, your relationships, and you will spend 1 hour acting as a prosecutor trying to destroy it. Seek out the smartest, most devastating counter-argument you can find and face it without flinching. This is the trial by fire for your beliefs. What happens next will define you. If your belief withstands this rigorous assault, it will no longer be a brittle prejudice. It will be a conviction of tempered steel. And if it crumbles, then you will have performed the most courageous intellectual act possible. You will have chosen the harsh, liberating truth over your own ego. You will have proven that you are more committed to reality than to the comfort of being right. This is the path to real wisdom. The world does not need more men who are certain they have all the answers. It needs more men who are humble enough to keep asking the hard questions. It doesn't need more loud voices demanding conformity. It needs more quiet, resilient minds capable of standing firm against the tide. This is the source of the silent strength you've been searching for. The strength to think for yourself when everyone else has stopped. This, then, is the ultimate inheritance of Bonhoeffer's final warning. The price of your intellectual freedom is eternal vigilance. not against some external enemy, but against the seductive pull of your own mind's desire for easy answers. It is the daily, hourly decision to remain a thinking, questioning, sovereign individual. In an age of overwhelming noise, the most radical act of resistance is the simple choice to think. We have traveled into the heart of a difficult and unsettling truth. We began by unmasking Bonhoeffer's chilling observation that the greatest danger to civilization isn't malice, but the thoughtless compliance of good people. We've dissected this functional stupidity, seeing it not as a lack of intelligence, but as a social poison, a voluntary surrender of the mind. We've seen how our own psychology, from our fear of isolation to our hatred of uncertainty, leaves us vulnerable, and how the very architecture of our modern world is designed to exploit these weaknesses. Now, at the end of this journey, you are left with a choice that is yours and yours alone. The path of comfort, of certainty, of outsourcing your thought to a group or an ideology is wide and well-trodden. But now you see where it leads. The other path is the path of intellectual humility. It is the difficult daily practice of questioning your own assumptions, of seeking friction, of choosing the discomfort of truth over the warm blanket of convenient lies. This is the path to the silent, unshakable strength you've been searching for. The tools are now in your hands. The question that remains is whether you will have the courage to use them, day after day. This journey of mental sovereignty is an ongoing battle. If you are committed to fighting it, to becoming a man whose mind cannot be hijacked, then make sure you subscribe and activate notifications so you never miss these essential conversations. This channel is a community for those who dare to think differently. To join us and to make a declaration to yourself, comment below with the phrase, "I will stand fast." It's more than a comment. It's a commitment. Remember, the battle for your mind is the foundation, but what you build upon that foundation is what truly matters. Stay vigilant, and I'll see you in the next stage of the fight.